first name I wanted to start off with is Justin Fields. And what I wanted to do before I let you talk about him, Grant, is that I saw a tweet that you put out, and I wanted to add some context to a tweet.
Sure.
So you put a tweet out saying that Justin Fields is not Cam Newton, is not Deshaun Watson.
Right.
He didn't transform the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I think there's a couple things you're missing with Justin Fields here. The first thing I think that you're missing is that the Ohio State that you're talking about with Dwayne Haskins, with Braxton Miller, all these guys was coached by who?
Urban.
He is one of what? The 10 greatest coaches in college football history. Is Ryan Day the same level of coach as Urban Meyer? I would tend to say no. I think he's
Hold on. What I would say about Urban Meyer, and you can disagree with me on this one. I've never really been impressed with Urban Meyer as a coach. He's a competent coach in terms of his schemes and stuff. But what he is he's
a culture setter.
Yes. And he is an amazing recruiter. An amazing recruiter. It seems to me that Ohio State's still recruiting just fine.
To an extent, but I would say the thing with Urban Meyer is that I think he's a culture setter. I mean, he's hired the right kind of people to set trends in college football, right? Him and Dan Mullen set the trend with the spread offense in college football, and he was the one who hired Dan Mullen, and they did that. And he's set up cultures in different places. Now, those cultures might be built on very, very flimsy kind of roots because there's a lot of questionable things in terms of character that goes on.
No, but he definitely brings in the best players in the country to his program. Right. He definitely does it from Florida.
And he builds a culture of winning in whatever short time he's there, or whatever time he's there. He can transform an entire situation. I don't know if Ryan Day has that same type of power and demeanor or kind of that, because I mean, Urban Meyer is kind of a Machiavellian leader.
And I know Ryan Day. Ryan Day was the quarterback coach on the Niners under Chip Kelly. I mean, he's just another spread offense guy. To me, again, I've never felt like there was a whole lot going on with Urban Meyer's scheme, but he was at the forefront of that trend in college football. I think his legacy in college football is that he's, if not maybe the greatest recruiter of all time, one of them.
Right.
But look, dude, that team in Ohio State, Trey Sermon, hell of a player. Whoever his backup is, hell of a player. Olave, the wide receiver, always open. I mean, it's a pretty good team. It is a good team. But I did want to give that context. That's a good point, though. That is a good point.
For the sake to defend Justin Fields. I know. I'm just knowing you. I know that if I came out here and told you John Elway went 5-6 his senior year, you would have said, well, who was he playing with in Stanford? Which I would have said fair to compare to what Justin Fields played with, obviously. So I had to bring in something a little different and throw you off.
No, that's a good call. It's a really good point. It's like if Dabo Swinney had left Clemson or Nick Saban had left Alabama. It's a really good point. All I'm saying is I feel like the Ohio State quarterbacks, the Alabama quarterbacks, those two schools in particular are really hard to evaluate those quarterbacks because it's hard to separate. It's almost damn near impossible to separate the quarterback from all the talent around him.
So let's get into that. So let's talk about Justin Fields, and let's talk about why I'm high on Justin Fields.
Okay.
And for me, the number one thing I want to mention when I talk about Justin Fields is I don't want to even talk about his physical tools. The number one thing that stood out to me in the last 2 days when I've watched Justin Fields, I sent a tweet about it earlier, is his toughness. This is the toughest quarterback in the draft. And it is the thing that, to me, separates him from Dwayne Haskins, is that Dwayne Haskins wasn't standing in the pocket looking to throw the football down the field. He was comfortable just checking the ball down with these little crossing routes. He had a great throwing motion. Everybody thought that Dwayne had, and his numbers were great because
it was great. But every Ohio State quarterback, you can't look at the box score. You just
right. But
that'll get you in trouble.
Justin Fields is different to me in the sense that I think this is actually one of his flaws. But to me, it's a good flaw. One of his flaws to me is that he's so willing to stand in that pocket tough to push the ball down the field that sometimes he doesn't take what the defense gives him. And sometimes he's athletic enough to get out of the pocket, escape, and do something else. But he's so tough, he's going to stand in there and look to push the ball down the field. I think that's a part of his game that I think Kyle Shanahan would like. And I think that's a part of his game that could definitely improve once he comes in the NFL because you can't teach that kind of toughness. Kirk Cousins was the same way, where he would just stand in there. And now look at him. He's improved in his presence. He's improved in his maturity. He's improved at moving outside of it. But the toughness, you can't teach that. And Justin Fields has it. And then let's get into the physical ability. I mean, you're talking about a special arm, the ability to throw the ball. I wouldn't say in terms of creativity and arm angles, he's like Zach Wilson, but it's a really strong arm. He stands in there tall. He stands in strong. He's really athletic. He's mobile. And one play I wanted to point out before you go is Rich Madrid posted it on Twitter. You had him on. He did an awesome job when you had him on your show. At Grant Cohn, by the way. Those of you who haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. But he posted a throw, and it's basically they're playing two-man to the boundary, and it's a 45-yard touchdown. And basically what happens is Chris Olave burns the corner, but that's okay because they're playing two men, so the corner really has to play in trail. And basically it's between the near hash and the sideline. You have the safety who actually starts 3 yards outside the hash. So the safety only has to run about 8 yards to make a play on this ball. But he throws the deep ball with so much touch, but yet it's flat and with so much arm talent, and the accuracy is so precise throwing it back shoulder. It's a 45-yard bomb that 3 yards from the hash, the safety has no chance of getting the ball. It was as impressive a throw as I've seen. It was phenomenal. I'm really high on the prospect of Justin Fields if in the case that a team like the Niners should get him, because I think he would be a superstar in that situation.
Okay. Let me tell you what I see from Justin Fields. I've watched a lot of Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields probably has the most upside of all the quarterbacks in this draft. Put it that way. I think he has the best tools and the most upside. But I don't think he's a particularly good quarterback right now, in the sense that I think he's going to struggle big time as a rookie. And you know what? So did Josh Allen. And that's not necessarily a reason not to draft a guy in round one. But I think we have to be clear on what he is right now. I mean, his job at Ohio State is one of the easier jobs in the country. Same with Mac Jones. You can't hold that. You still have to evaluate him, and he's still a hell of an athlete. But 22 starts, he's had some bad games. He didn't play particularly well in 2 of the 3 playoff games he played. He really struggled against Northwestern, and there was one more this year. I forget which one it was. He won the game, but he threw 2 picks.
Indiana.
Yes, Indiana. So amazing upside. And that upside, he's kind of like James Wiseman. You know what I'm saying? Like, the upside is just so apparent. And it's going to get him drafted real high, probably 2. But when you put him on the field in an NFL game, I think he's going to be a little I think he's going to struggle at first. Inexperienced, playing at Ohio State, how he's going to be at the Jets. Dude, you don't understand. You were on an all-star team. Now you're going to a terrible team with probably a bad coach. And the system may not even fit you. If you were on the Niners, you'd have a better shot. But still, I mean, the offensive line is shaky. You're not going to have the time you had at Ohio State. I think he's, best case, a guy like Josh Allen who will be balling year 3. That's what I'm saying. And worst case, he's a guy like Sam Darnold who goes to a bad team, is toolsy, but never puts it all together. And the thing that scares me about him, that the reason this, like when I talk to people like, not necessarily you, but people like, Rich, who really like him. Okay, well, who's the comp? Who do you see him as? Deshaun Watson. Well, then who do you see?
I see a mixture of Dak Prescott and Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Because, I mean, when people say Deshaun, I'm like, well, dude, Deshaun won a national championship. I think Deshaun would have won a national championship at Ohio State.
I think with Deshaun is Deshaun as a human being, like, we're talking about one of the greatest college football players ever, and just has this kind of
one of the most accomplished college quarterbacks of all time. His resume is A1.
Right. And 2, I think there's a feel and a magic to Deshaun that you can't really compare to any other player in football. Deshaun is pretty magical when he gets on the field. To me, the comparison actually, and I think one of the things that people really harp on with Justin Fields is he's not the most anticipatory thrower. Well, I'm not even going to get into his system and how that affects it, because I think
that's how most mobile quarterbacks are. It's just kind of comes with the territory
on that point. And
most anticipatory throwers are that way because they have to be. I'm just saying.
Right. That's one. 2, I think one of the things in 2 is I was talking to Eric Crocker earlier, and he made a great point to me on the phone. Is he said, well, why the hell do you pay these coaches so much money? He's got all these things. You should be able to teach him. Well, if they rotate to single high, you're going to throw the ball here. If they do this, you're going to have to anticipate to throw the ball here. The game is processed for a lot of these young quarterbacks because of these systems. I mean, that's why they're able to succeed right away. So I think
look at Alex Smith, man. Like what happens is The dude comes in the league and he struggles the first year.
Yeah, but you're
the coordinator gets fired.
Scenario. You're talking about the worst case offensive scenario.
No, I'm talking about the typical scenario. What often happens is a guy like Justin Fields go to some terrible team like Alex Smith did, and you struggle the first year and someone gets blamed for it. Maybe it's the offensive coordinator. He gets fired. You bring in a new system year 2. Now you're putting that quarterback in a bad spot. Like it's so easy for the developmental process to get messed up. Coaches get fired. The NFL is not for long. It's rare that a guy like Josh Allen gets to stay in one environment and everyone is on board with losing and developing slowly. Usually someone gets fired and the development gets messed up, and then you're Sam Darnold or you're Josh Rosen or you're
I think in my opinion he's a bit more polished. He's more polished than Josh Allen when he came out, just in terms of being able to function within the pocket and just in terms of how accurate he is short to intermediate. I mean,
what I'll say is that Josh Allen had 2 years of getting his butt kicked on a bad team, so he knew what it was like to be at a talent deficit, and that's going to be a little different for a dude coming from an all-star team.
But when I watched Justin Fields, I don't look at a guy that was just given immaculate protection during his time in college. I mean, some of his hits that he took were self-inflicted, but he was also put under pressure. I mean, the Indiana game, he was getting rocked. So
I know he didn't respond very well to it. The thing about Ohio State is even compared to Alabama, like they're in the Big Ten. Like most of their schedule, they're just way better than the teams they play most of the time. So the 22 games he played in college.
I think we're going to see a lot, like the Ohio State players that Urban brought in, all those guys that get drafted. I think you're going to see a lot less guys come into the draft from Ohio State. I don't think this team is as good anywhere near those teams with Joey Bosa, Ezekiel Elliott, Michael Thomas. So
I thought that Trey Sermon guy was amazing against Clemson, the running back. I thought he was fantastic. And also that wide receiver, Olave. If they had a quarterback who would air it out more. The thing about Fields, like he calls his own, he runs a lot, and that's what Zach Wilson does. It's what runners do. A guy like Mac Jones, I guarantee you, if he was Ohio State's quarterback, that Olave dude would have had 1,000 yards. I mean, he would have been much more productive. And that's why you hear Devontae Smith say, "We like better Mac Jones or two at Mac Jones."
I think comparing systems, Steve Sarkisian is a much better offensive system than what Ryan Day had for Justin Fields. So I think you have to take those things into account. Mac Jones absolutely could not function in Ohio State system because Ohio State system, part of it was reliant on Justin Fields' running ability, and Mac Jones offers nothing from that standpoint. And his running ability opened up a lot for them in the run and the pass game.
From what I've seen with Justin Fields, I'll just put it this way: like he would definitely improve the Niners' run game right off the bat. He's a hell of a runner. He really is. But he doesn't see the field better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. Like he has like one or two guys open on every play because it's Ohio State. You can watch the film yourself. You'll see it. And he often won't see guys. He'll read one side of the field. He'll choose to run when guys are open. That's fine. I mean, that's part of the developmental process for guys like him, Steve Young. It's okay. But that's what he is right now. That's all I'm saying. And if you're going to bring him onto the Niners, he's not necessarily going to be an upgrade as a passer from Jimmy Garoppolo. In fact, he'll be a downgrade with upside. But that's why I really feel that way. If you're bringing in Justin Fields to start next year, you're not necessarily going to make the playoffs with that guy. That's you're looking for the future now.